Yo, what's up, guys? We're back, and this week we're going to be doing a huge breakdown. It's going to be for UFC 274. We got 2 title fights. We got Tony Ferguson back taking on Michael Chandler in a really fun fight, and Donald Cerrone's back. We got a lot of fun fights throughout the card, so I'm pretty excited for UFC 274. But right before we get started, I want to give you guys, some knowledge on a really good opportunity here with CashflowMMA.com. I really recommend you check them out. Right now, they have a free promotion going on until May 31st, where if you use the promo code MMAGuru, I will have the link in the description. And if you use that promo code, you can get access to their bets for free until May 31st. And you get to see everything they have to offer. They do bets for all the MMA organizations, more or less, or at least the major ones. Here's a couple of their bets that they placed last week. For instance, here they had a PFL bet going on with Brendan Loughnane to win, with Bubba Jenkins to win, and Bruno Capoloza to win in a 3-team parlay, and it actually ended up being correct. It hit, so that was yet another win for the guys over there at Cashflow MMA. And man, they've been killing it so far in April. They're up 435% on their return on investment, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, man, stay tuned. They have a lot more good bets to give out. They've been doing a really good job so far for the MMA community, and I really appreciate Cashflow MMA, giving this service to you guys. Obviously, I do a similar thing, but I don't feel like I'm in big competition with all these guys. I want to give the love to everyone on YouTube, everyone that's on other platforms, and it's just all about being the bookie. So if you can get as many different opinions, solid opinions that you trust, that are good opinions that you can, then you just have that much better chance of making some money. So I definitely recommend Cashflow MMA as one of those options to go check out. So I will have their link in the description, and once again, you have until May 31st to get a free trial of them, see if you like the type of bets they do, and they're going to make you some money. So definitely check out CashflowMMA.com. And just before we get started, last week, you guys did a great job. I wanted to get 150 likes, and we hit that goal, man. So let's try to get 150 likes again. Let's try to get 200. Fuck it, man. I know you guys could hit that like button, so smash the like button. It's UFC 274. We got a pay-per-view going on. We're going to make some money. I did pretty well on the predictions last week. We did really well on the betting side of it, so if you want to get on the Patreon, check that out. But yeah, man, hit that like button. Let's try to get 200 likes on this video. That would be fucking amazing. I would really appreciate that. And we're going to do the same thing we did last week as well, if you put a comment down below for the main event, Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje, you tell me how many significant strikes you think are going to be landed combined between the two fighters, who you think is going to win, and the method in which you think they're going to win. And if you are correct, then, and you have the closest significant strikes, because obviously there's probably going to be a few other people that have the same pick as you, then you will gain access to my Patreon for the following week. You'll gain access to all the bets that I put on there, all the content that I put on there. So make sure to put down below what your prediction for the main event is, who you think is going to win, how you think they're going to win, and how many significant strikes combined between the two athletes you think will be landed. And if you are the closest, you will be getting that free Patreon package for next week. The winner for last week was Sander, and actually he was the only person that picked Cheeto by decision. So great prediction by him. Significant strikes, I mean, man, I don't think anyone would have predicted 430 significant strikes combined. He had 133 picks, so he was, kind of way off on the significant strikes, but being the only guy that picked Cheeto to win via decision, he is the winner. So shout out to Sander. If you're listening to this right now, I will get back to you on the comment as well. So if you missed this video, you could maybe see it there. But yeah, if you're listening to this right now, put a comment down below this video and let me know your Twitter handle or where you kind of want me to send you that information, or if you want to just hit me up through Twitter. My Twitter's Prediction May, so hit me up over there. But yeah, man, big shout out to Sander. Congratulations to him. And he was the big winner last week for the main event prediction. But let's move along into this card now. We have the first fight of the night. We got Andre Fialo. He's taking on Cameron Van Camp. This is a fight that got put together at really short notice. I'm not really sure why. I know Fialo, he just recently fought against Miguel Baeza. That was 3 weeks ago. And he was asking to get on a card fairly quickly. And he wasn't joking. I mean, he's fighting 3 weeks later on a pay-per-view card. But they kind of announced this fight like within, I think it was like a 2 weeks notice or less type of fight for both guys. So not sure why they wanted to add this 15th fight on the card here. But We got Andre Fiallo, who's coming off that big knockout win over Miguel Baeza, who already had a fun back and forth fight with Michel Pereira. So he's already seen some upper echelon guys in the division. And he's going to be taking on Cameron Van Camp, who's going to be making his UFC debut. So obviously, Fiallo is a pretty big favorite, and I do think that's for good reason. But I think it's more of a dog or pass type of situation, if I'm honest with you, because Cameron Van Camp is a big guy for the division. He is going to have the size advantage here, and he's a grappler. On the feet, he is a good athlete, and he has like a long reach, but very green. He basically just looks to close the gap with knees to the body, flying knees, big crosses. And on the inside, he does have some decent hooks and uppercuts, but never moves his head, doesn't really feint very much. His defense is, not good. And he's a bad knockout waiting to happen, if you ask me. So I do think that having already been knocked out one time, it's going to happen again in Van Camp's career. But he's athletic, wild, and willing to let it go. So he's dangerous, and he has a long frame and uses his brawling style to get into the clinch or get fighters against the cage, and usually can get him to the mat from there. And he's dangerous on top. He's aggressive with his ground and pound. He has quite a few submissions. But I've seen him lose position. He seems a little bit weak off bottom. His guard looks fairly easy to pass. I've seen him get held down. He is super tough. I've seen him eat some big bombs. He has good cardio. If you go back and you watch a fight of Cameron Van Camp's against Bobby Volker, he lost that fight. It was a 5-round fight, but that was one of the best fights I've seen in a long time, man. Very high-paced fight. Both guys got hurt on multiple occasions, and Van Camp threw a lot of volume, crazy amount of shots early, really had Volker in a lot of trouble. And against guys that weren't as durable as a guy like Bobby Volker, he might have been able to get him out of there. But all that volume and just, I feel like kind of at that point, it was a few fights ago at this stage, 4 fights ago for him. He still has been in a lot of rough fights, a lot of tough fights, long fights. And I think that he kind of pushed a pace early, trying to get the guy out of there that he couldn't sustain. And that's why he got tired, and then he ended up losing the decision. And in this fight, he's facing another guy that I don't think is going to be the cardio machine like Bobby Volker or have great durability and walk you down and win that way. But Fialo has the technicality. He's a real crispy striker, really sharp. He could switch stances, and he stands tall, but due to that, he can move in and out really quickly. I am a little bit worried about, him standing tall, allowing the takedown. And I wouldn't be surprised if Van Camp got a takedown maybe early on in the fight, but I think that he isn't necessarily a guy, even though he's a lot of finishes on the ground, and I do respect his ground game, I don't think that necessarily he'll be able to finish very many top-level guys on the ground, or maybe even control them on the ground. I think that he's had a pretty padded record. A lot of the guys that he's finished with submissions were not the best fighters, and I think as he gets to this higher level, it's going to be a little bit harder in that realm. And on the feet, his defense is just too bad to go in there with a guy like Fialo, who is just really good, man. Really good striker. His left hook is nasty. He has a really good right hook. He can always switch stance, throw that check hook really effectively. Really nice uppercuts. He throws really nice tight, straight punches. And there's just really not a lot of fat on what Fialo does. Super sharp guy. Pretty good leg kicks, or pretty good kicks in general as well. He does have some issues with leg kicks. I don't think that's going to come into play in this fight with Cameron Van Camp. But Fialo, he has really good ability in the pocket to pick and pull. Cameron Van Camp is willing to brawl and stay in the pocket. I think that's bad news for him a little bit. And Fialo is very, very heavy-handed. He has big power. We saw him knock out Miguel Baeza with one punch. We saw him drop Michel Pereira, who's notoriously durable. And Fialo does slow down, and fighters that pressure him can give him a little bit of issues. Once he becomes tired, he can become very hittable. But in this fight, I feel like you have to favor Fialo in a major way. He's probably going to get the first round knockout. He's the best fighter Van Camp has ever fought. I think he's too sharp, too precise. I imagine he is, and I did see the line. I think they just recently dropped it where he's like a minus 350 favorite. I think that line is, pretty close. I would maybe line him like a minus 300. I think that, who knows though? I mean, if he could, Van Camp could create a brawl, maybe he could hurt Fialo and snatch the neck or get him tired and take over. But I just think that definitely is going to be a tough task. And I feel like Fialo is going to get it done and probably going to look pretty good getting that first round knockout once again. So I will go with Andre Fialho here to win as the favorite. And in this next fight, we got two guys that are going to be competing in the bantamweight division, with Journey Newson taking on Fernie Garcia. Fernie Garcia, this is going to be his UFC debut, and he's a well-rounded fighter. He's primarily a wrestler. On the feet, he is a little bit limited, but he has good cardio, he has good speed, and he's durable. He will walk fighters down, and in the pocket, he lets his hands go. He is aggressive, but he's hittable. And, you know, right now with his kind of just being kind of young in his MMA career, he could take it, and that's one of the big things for him. So he's willing to brawl, and mostly just brawl to open up the takedown opportunity. He likes to work that Philly show Mayweather defense to try to get guys to throw at him so he can counter with the left hook or the overhand, but doesn't really have the best head movement, and he stands heavy on his lead leg. He doesn't check leg kicks. He will switch stances to mitigate the leg kick damage, but not super effective when he goes to his unnatural stance. And he isn't the biggest kicker, so to be effective, he definitely has to get his pressure going, get on the inside. Fighters that can stick and move, that are fast, that have good footwork, will give issues to Fernie Garcia. And then I also think fighters who have big power and know how to exchange in the pocket, stay sharp, will also give Garcia problems. I definitely feel like Garcia needs to improve. His chin and toughness do win him his fights, though, and he can make fights wars and then take over with his cardio and wrestling. And he's a pretty solid offensive wrestler. He likes to use his boxing and back fighters up and then shoot in on them, and he has good top control, decent ground and pound. He isn't the most dangerous fighter on the ground, but he can grind it out. And his takedown defense, I would say, definitely needs work. He can be taken down, can be held down. His one pro loss, he did spend quite a bit of time on his back, but he does have good cardio, and he's been tested. He's gone through some wars. He's been through tough fights. If you include his amateur career, he's been fighting since 2011, had 20 fights total. So he is a veteran in that sense. And he isn't the most dangerous fighter, but he has a solid point fighting style against some opponents, solid boxing, cardio, pressure, and he can mix in the takedowns. He is a guy that, you know, if you're fighting someone, or if he's fighting someone with questionable cardio, that can't wrestle, that doesn't do well when they're pressured, he can do it well. But he's going to struggle against movers, against leg kickers, against heavy hitters, against wrestlers, against good cardio guys. And he's a very beatable fighter, in my opinion, Fernie Garcia. But Journey Newson, he is a guy that is very beatable as well. He is quick, and he has power in his hands. He has good movement. In this fight, I think he's going to want to try to use his lateral movement, try to work leg kicks, then walk him into the big overhands or the big hooks. He has the good left hook that he throws, a nice overhand right, closes the distance pretty quickly, explosive type of guy. But low volume, likes to fight off the back foot. He does keep fighters honest with his knockout power. In his last match, though, he did get knocked out brutally with the head kick. It's been quite a while since we've seen him fight, so I am a little bit, you know, kind of question if he's going to be tentative or not. And I haven't seen too much grappling for Junior Newson. I think in this fight with Garcia, he should try to mix in some takedowns, though. I don't really think he has the best takedown defense. I've seen him jump guillotine instead of defend takedowns. But off of his back, he's hard to hold down, and you can scramble back up to his feet, Newson. And Newson, cardio-wise, he does hold up. He's pretty tough. He's conditioned. And I think this fight is either going to be a close decision win for Fernie Garcia, or Newson is going to find the knockout shot. Newson's last two wins have been first-round knockouts. His last two fights have both ended super quickly with one person or the other. He has one knockout win and one knockout loss within a minute in his last two fights. But Garcia is very durable, never been finished, and I think it's more likely that he could take the power and win by decision. So I'm going to go with Garcia in a slow, tactical striking match. Maybe Garcia gets a takedown and steals it that way. I don't think he's going to look super great or, you know, overwhelm and be dominant against Journey Newson, but I will say that Fernie Garcia edges the decision. And in this next one, we got a fight in the women's flyweight division, or excuse me, women's strawweight division between Lupita Godinez and Ariane Carnelossi. And Ariane Carnelossi, she's proved she belongs. She had a really tough UFC debut. She lost to Angela Hill, but has rebounded with back-to-back finishes. So she is getting a step up in competition. She's facing Lupita Godinez. And if she can win this one, she's probably going to get a top 15 opponent next. But Carnelossi, she's a powerhouse. She's a pressure fighter. Just look at her, man. Her arms are huge, and she's just a little tank. I mean, isn't the greatest striker. She has short arms. Her muscularity does make her a little bit robotic, but she'll throw heavy hooks, and she does hit hard. She has a good chin, so she can pressure forward, give one and take one. She'll throw leg kicks. She has decent body kicks. But against a superior fighter with good footwork movement, she definitely could struggle. And she is going to be tough out. She is going to make opponents work, pressure them, be powerful for 3 rounds. But technically, she isn't one of the best girls in the division. Carnelossi is a strong grappler. She will pressure forward, and she's good in the clinch. She doesn't have the most excellent technique, but she'll work her knees. She'll push fighters against the cage, control them there. Good body locks. You did see her against a really good clincher in Angela Hill. Struggle in the clinch. She ended up getting cut with an elbow, and that ended up finishing the fight. And she got out-techniqued in the clinch, kind of held against the cage, and just her strength advantage was nullified by Angela Hill's knowledge of Muay Thai. But Carnelossi, when she can, get the body lock or look for the single or double and finish against the cage, she is heavy on top. She has hard ground and pound. She's finished her last 2 fights on the ground. She beat Na Liang with ground and pound in the second round. That was that wild fight where she got taken down a few times early and was in some bad positions, but was able to survive and kind of just drown Na Liang, get her tired, and finished her. And then her last fight against Estela Nunes, she faced another opponent with cardio issues that she got tired. In the third round, she took Estela Nunes back and choked her out. So that was good to see from Carnelossi. And Carnelossi is a girl that has elite cardio and tries to weaponize that by pushing a crazy pace. So you better be ready to fight a hard 15 against Ariane Carnelossi. And Lupita Godinez, she's going to be ready to do that. She's a Mexican fighter. She made a big impact in her first year in the UFC. She set the record for shortest period between fights in modern UFC history. And this is going to be her 5th UFC fight in just a little over a year. 2-2 so far in her 4 UFC fights. So she hasn't necessarily had elite level success, but her 2 decision losses could have went either way. And many people could see her being undefeated potentially in the UFC. She's coming off a nice victory in her last fight as well, where she defeated Luma Lukbunmi, who's one of the better strikers in that weight class. Godinez is a wrestler boxer. She's a technical fighter. She's pretty strong. She has a nice left hook, good overhand right. That's what she works on the feet. She has power. She has good timing. She'll try to mix in some leg kicks, body kicks. She can be a bit basic, but she has good basics, and she does a good job of just staying sharp. She's a little bit flat-footed. I don't really think that's going to matter in this fight with Carnelossi. Both these girls are going to be easy to find each other. But I do feel like in the stand-up, I would give the slight edge to Lupita Godinez just by having the better basics. Lupita Godinez's wrestling has improved quite a bit as well. She was able to compete in the clinch and do probably get the better of it against a multi-time Muay Thai world champion in Loma Lukbunmi in her last fight. And I think she competes in the clinch with the large majority of the division, including Carnelossi. She has a good single. She has a fairly good double. She could chain wrestle, and her top control is all right. I don't necessarily think she can control Carnelossi on the map, but she can mix in the takedowns and make Carnelossi think about the takedowns to open up her striking a little bit more and get points. And she's going to improve her control and submission game as she progresses in her career because she's improving everything else, and she is a girl that fights very actively. I think she does have a big passion for the sport. This fight should be competitive. I think on the feet, Godinez is the better boxer. She's going to get the better of it, but Carnelossi has that equalizer with the power, so if she can land some big shots, maybe she could make it close or edge it in the eyes of the judges. In the clinch, I do lean towards Godinez as well, having the advantage. I think that she may have trouble accounting for the strength of Carnelossi, but she's strong as well, and I think she's a little bit more technical. If Godinez slows down a little bit, Carnelossi may be able to take over, but Godinez has proven herself in tough 5-round wars, and I think she should be able to keep the pace. I think that even though Carnelossi probably has the grappling edge in terms of the jiu-jitsu, I feel like Godinez can make it more of a standout fight, try to use the clinch, and mix in some takedowns where she ends up on top and can win the fight that way. So it's a close fight, and I feel like the line is a little bit too wide, but I am going to go with Lupita Godinez to get the win. And this is a fight I'm looking forward to here. It's two flyweights, and it should be an interesting matchup with Chiasson Rodrigues taking on CJ Vergara. Chiasson Rodrigues, this is going to be his UFC debut, and he's a super confident, young, aggressive fighter coming out of Team Nogueira, so he's a great camp behind him, and he's clearly improving. He's a big guy for the flyweight division, and he likes to fight like a bully, comes forward like a Terminator, very aggressive striker, but he isn't wild. He likes to keep it technical. He has smart pressure. He stays long. Some really nice 1-2s. Throws good straight punches. He has good front kicks. He'll throw some really nice 1-2s, some really nice straight punches down the middle. He has good kicks, good front kicks, good round kicks to all parts of the body. Throws a lot of spinning kicks as well. And defense-wise, I like Rodriguez' defense. He has good feints. He has good distance control. Keeps his hands high. He doesn't overextend or get in too many unnecessary exchanges. His last opponent, Santo Curatolo, I do think kind of gave him an easy fight because he had a bad game plan. Curatolo was content to skirt around on the outside. And if you do that against Rodriguez and don't have the speed or reach advantage, then I don't know how you expect to get the victory. I mean, Rodriguez was able to just pick him apart the whole fight, keep him at range, land more strikes, land the more significant strikes, and you give him that type of fight, he could be a really impressive fighter. He has great speed, he has good kicks, he has nice counter punch ability, he's creative, he's long, he can control the distance well. Fighters to beat him are going to have to make it ugly, man. They're going to have to get inside, they're going to have to make him exchange, they're going to have to make him wrestle. I don't think Rodriguez is as good in an ugly type striking fight. I've seen him kind of show some a little bit defensive problems, in close range. So that is where you're going to beat him. And he's a solid grappler, though, Chiasson Rodrigues. He has a good clinch game. He has some really nice knees. He'll go low, go high with the knees. He has good elbows. His wrestling may not be elite, but he's strong. He's hard to hold down if you do take him down. He did get taken down against Santo Curatolo, but Curatolo couldn't hold him down. I do think that fighters that can wrestle really well will give Rodriguez some issues and be able to take him down and hold him down, but it looks like he has a judo background. He has some decent clinch takedowns, but he isn't really much of a fighter who likes to grapple in his fights. He wants to keep it standing and do his thing. I've seen him more than once end up on top and then stand up out of his opponent's guard and just let him back up. So it seems like he doesn't really like being on the ground, but training with Team Nogueira, I definitely think he has the jiu-jitsu to compete at UFC level. Against Curatolo, he did get a pretty deep guillotine attempt in the third round that he almost got but wasn't able to finish. And he showed good cardio in his last fight, but that would be another area where I feel like he is still to be determined in his career. He's only been to 3 decisions. He's 2-1 in the 3 decisions. And his last fight, he didn't look super tired in the third round, but he definitely wasn't as sharp as the first. And I do think his cardio needs to improve a little bit. But CJ Vergara, he's a veteran. He's a pretty skillful striker. His UFC debut didn't go as planned, so I'm sure he's amped up. He's trying to right that wrong in the win column. I have seen Vergara fight off the back foot and on the front foot in fights. In this fight, I believe he's going to pressure and try to be aggressive. He has to do that to have a chance. He has good head movement. He's going to be trying to pressure forward, go body head with his boxing combinations. He's definitely improved the fluidity of his hands. He throws straighter punches now, throws faster punches. He throws in combination. And he actually has the slight reach advantage in this fight. Most of the time when I've seen Chiasson Rodrigues fight, he's been the significantly taller, longer fighter. So this is going to be a different look for him. And Vergara can kick pretty good as well. He has some round kicks, body head. He'll throw some front kicks up the middle. He's decent at playing that range game himself, but I feel like in this fight he has to go with this pressure game and be aggressive, get on the inside, because he doesn't have the same speed as Rodriguez. Even though he's improved on his straight punches and his fluidity, he still throws a lot of hooks and overhands. And Rodriguez throws almost all straight shots, so he can get there faster. Vergara, in my opinion, did take the first round against Ode Osborne, though, who's a fast, long counterpuncher. After the first round, it did look like he slowed down, got a little bit tired. He didn't have the same pressure. But he's tough. He can get hurt and come back. His chin is there. And he's never been finished by punches in his career. And CJ Vergara, just like Rodriguez, he has a good clinch game. He'll throw brutal knees in the clinch. He has very good technique there. His takedown defense and grappling have improved. He's gotten a lot better at exploding back to his feet after he gets taken down. And he's gotten a lot better with his takedown defense in general, but that's still a weak point for him. He is going to struggle against wrestlers, against guys that want to take him down and hold him down. I don't really necessarily think that Rodrigues is going to try to do that, though. And the way I see this fight going is I think Rodrigues needs to use his low kicks here. He's going to want to use the nice counter crosses that he has, maybe even try to surprise and get in the clinch with Vergara and try to take him down or slow the fight down. But I think that Rodrigues has the better defense. He holds his hands high. Vergara has his hands down a lot. Vergara is a good fighter to test Rodrigues, though, because he doesn't have the wrestling, but on the feet, he's going to pressure and push the pace. He's going to try to attack the body, and he's proven that he has some power. I thought he fared well against Ode Osborne. He had a competitive first round, won the third round, and I could see this fight going either way. Both fighters have passed to victory, but I'm going to go with Klidson Rodrigues. I'm going to give him the slight edge. I think that he is the better grappler, and he's a little bit more athletic. He's maybe a little bit stronger, and he's undefeated. I feel like Vergara has a great chin. He's going to keep coming forward. If Rodrigues slows down, Vergara could break him, but I'm going to go with the undefeated fighter to squeak it on the scorecards, maybe with a 29-28. And this next fight, this should be a good one. We got two underrated girls in the flyweight division facing off here. Tracy Cortez, she's 3-0 so far in UFC career. She's already built up a solid fan base due to her looks, the backstory. She's now engaged to Brian Ortega. And she's a fighter who isn't really spoken much about, though, when you talk about the best up-and-coming fighters in the division. But she's already beaten Erin Blanchfield and Maria Gapova. She took out Stephanie Egger. She beat Justine Kish. So she has some good wins for being only 28 years old and only having 10 fights. Her opponent, Melissa Gatto, she had to wait a while for her UFC debut. She had the USADA issue, but man, she's looked better than ever since she made a return. She came back last August, and she hadn't fought in almost 3 years at that point, but she was able to go in there and got the finish over Victoria Leonardo. She showed some ring rust, and I feel like her subsequent performance against Sijara Eubanks was a lot better, but she ended up hurting Leonardo's arm with an armbar submission attempt in that fight, and Leonardo didn't tap, but at the end of the second round, they stopped the fight because she had a broken arm. And then Gatto followed that up with the body kick victory over Sijara Eubanks. And her last win before joining the UFC was a huge win as well, where she beat Carol Hossa. So the winner of this fight definitely deserves to get a jump in the rankings next and fight a ranked opponent, and maybe even have a ranking next to their own names. But for Melissa Gatto, as far as a fighter goes, she's an aggressive striker, pressure fighter, and she likes to let go with the 1-2s. She'll attack the body with punches fairly effectively, and she'll let go with the front kicks, round kicks to the body. She'll throw some leg kicks. Her last fight, she landed that front kick perfectly, and it just folded Eubanks, ended the fight. But defensively, Gatto is not very good. She's flat-footed. She stands tall. She has very little to no head movement. But she has a good chin, and it seems like when she gets hit, she likes to return, and she's aggressive and has that kind of will to fight and get into a brawl in there. But I do think she will struggle against high-level strikers, and her game and her best asset is being that jiu-jitsu black belt that she is. Her submission game is what has won her the majority of her fights, and she's improving her grappling for MMA. I mean, if you go back and watch her fight, like with Cindy Rocha, for instance, she was submission over position, and she still is, but she's gotten better, in my opinion, at when she's in a static spot or somewhere where, like, in half guard, she's just getting held down. In the past, she'd, like, fish for Kimuras and fish for all these real low percentage submissions that just had a very small percentage chance of hitting. And she would also go for submissions from the top position that lost her position very frequently. I feel like now she's getting a little bit better at when she's stuck on the bottom in a bad position, she will try to re-guard, and not necessarily, I still don't think she is as, what's the word I'm trying to use? She's not as aggressive, or she doesn't try to get up as quickly as I would like her to, but she will try to get into a more advantageous position where she can potentially do more off her back. And when she can get her guard, she does have really good armbar triangle setup. She has good sweep. She has long legs in general. And, when she can get on top, that's where she is very good. She does a great job of, controlling the position. When she wants to, obviously, she will go for submissions at times and lose a position. But when she wants to, she can control, lane ground and pound. She could get into dominant positions and finish the fight. But really, the majority of her submissions have came off her back so far in her career. And, she was able to submit multiple girls with Kimuras from bottom, which is something that is pretty interesting. I mean, she does a good job. She'll go like triangle armbar, Kimura triangle, and try to kind of, you know, get you thinking about the choke, or then she'll break your arm, or get you thinking about the arm, and then she'll choke you out. So she definitely is very tricky on the ground. Her last fight, she went in there with another girl that's very strong, who's a girl that's an elite black belt. And Eubanks dominated the first round very easily, but like usual, she got tired. And then that second round, Melissa Gatto was able to sweep, get on top, control there. And then the third round, she finished her with her body kicks. So I do think that you know, Gatto is getting a lot better. She's young, 26 years old, and she has great cardio. That's one of her biggest strengths, and she's big for the division. For Tracy Cortez, she's a wrestler, but she's putting in work to improve all aspects of her MMA game. She trains out of one of the best gyms in the world. She's at Fight Ready MMA. Definitely dedicated, puts the work in. Her striking is still developing, but she has good movement, decent kicks. She'll throw 1-2s, 3-2s. I've seen her rip the body. She still is a bit flat-footed, and she will throw some kicks in punching range. She is hittable. She's going to have to get past those long levers of Melissa Gatto. And Gatto in her last fight did look like she improved her distance control a little bit, so Cortez has to be ready for that. But Cortez striking did look better in her last fight as well. She's getting more comfortable with her in and out movement. She's getting more comfortable sticking in the pocket and seeing punches, defending them, and returning. And she's a Mexican. She's always proven and shown that she's tough. She's durable. She's never been finished by strikes in her career. And she's a really good wrestler. She has good timing on her level changes. She finishes really well. Good takedowns against the cage. And on top, she's good at staying tight. She'll throw short ground and pound. She maintains a position really well. And she has good back takes. And I think that Fight Ready is the perfect camp for her style. She is going to need to worry about pressure, boxing, and getting the takedown in this fight, staying heavy and doing her thing. And that's what she usually does in all her fights. And if she gets put on her back, she needs to stay composed and try to work back up to her feet. And she has proven to be good at that in her fight. She's a good scrambler. When she gets put on bottom, she usually can get into the single and scramble back up to the top, or scramble back to her feet. And I've seen her showing grit, get out of some tough submission positions. So she's not an easy fighter to submit either. She always comes in great shape, and she's willing to battle and grind it out to get the win. So this is a fun fight. I think both girls are going to make some noise going forward in the division. And it's a classic matchup, wrestling versus jiu-jitsu. Both girls are kind of low level in the striking realm, but I do think Gatto may have the edge there with the range and ability to kick better. But I think that Cortez has the far superior wrestling, and she's proven that she has good knowledge of positioning and just awareness of jiu-jitsu. And I think that being with Fight Ready, Dayton Bryan Ortega, it's going to help her with a strong, bigger jiu-jitsu fighter in this fight. I feel like Cortez can win this fight by grinding it out with the wrestling, staying tight, keeping the top position, and getting the decision that way. So Cortez is in her hometown. She is in Phoenix, Arizona as well. So if the fight's close, I think the crowd could edge her the victory by just being loud for her. So give me Tracy Cortez to pick up the dub. And this next fight, it's close on the money line, and it's a welterweight fight between Francisco Trinaldo and Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts. Francisco Trinaldo, I mean, he continues to defy Father Time. He picked up his first welterweight win in the UFC last October. And he's been in the UFC forever now. He's part of the Ultimate Fighter Brazil Season 1 show. And his first UFC fight was in June of 2012. 17-7 in 24 UFC fights. So he's been super stellar. Even at 43 years old, he's won 4 of his last 5 fights. He was forced to move up to 170 after some weight cutting issues. But so far, he's had 2 welterweight fights, and he was very competitive in both. And he's a pressure fighter. He keeps his hands high. He has good feints, good fakes, southpaw. He likes to work that big overhand left, the left cross. He'll follow that up with a big right hook. He'll blitz in with some 2-3 punch combos. And he's an underrated body puncher. I think you should use that more. He has a nice left kick. He has a surprisingly good high kick. His leg kicks are solid. I think you should look to use those leg kicks in this fight actively. And Trinaldo just needs to do what he does on the feet here. Pressure, look for the big counter punches. If you can land on Roberts clean, I definitely think you can knock him out. And Trinaldo has been notoriously durable. He's never been stopped via strikes in his entire career. He has been knocked down a few times. Maybe someone will get him sometime soon, but no one has been able to crack Trinaldo's chin yet. And Trinaldo's a strong grappler. He is good in the clinch. He has heavy knees. He has good elbows, good dirty boxing. We've seen him cut guys with clinch elbows and finish fights that way. And he isn't super active with his wrestling, but he has a decent double leg. And when he gets on top, he has good control, good back takes, good arm triangles. I definitely think he could do well against Roberts in the top position, and I do think that mixing in takedowns would be a smart path to victory for Trinaldo. even at his age, he still has good cardio, and he still has the will to win. He slows down a little bit, but usually Trinaldo is a guy that control the pace of his fights by being powerful, and that helps him with his cardio. But Danny Roberts, he's still searching for consistency. He has been in the UFC since 2015, and he's been able to get a couple win streaks of just 2 fights, but he's never won more than 2 fights in a row, and really never had a big time win. His last victory over Ramazan Emeev was his best victory of his career. So if you could follow that up with a win over Francisco Trinaldo, make your 3 wins in a row, he's going to be close to the top 15 as he's ever been. And Danny Roberts is a southpaw himself. He's a boxer. He's long, he's fast, he has good 1-2s. He'll mix in some left body kicks, left head kicks. And Roberts does have a tendency to overextend, get real wild at times. It makes a lot of his fights grappling matches or clinch fests. And when he can't connect clean, he has shown he has big power. He has good speed early, and he has a few early knockout wins. But Roberts being wild, overextending, getting out of position, just being willing to stick it and brawl has cost him in a few fights. It's gotten him knocked out. He's tough, but he doesn't have an elite chin, and I do think that Trinaldo has the superior durability. Danny Roberts has turned himself into a solid grappler. He has came over, worked a lot with Sanford MMA, and you could tell his clinch game has improved a lot. He has good control there, solid knees to the body. He's improved his hand fighting, his pummeling, and he's hard to control in the clinch himself. Takedown defense has looked bad in certain fights, but has looked better in other fights. For instance, if you watch the fight with Claudio Silva, his takedown defense looked really bad in that one. But then if you watch his last fight against Ramazan Emeev was able to take him down a couple times with single legs, but he was able to use the triangle to create scrambles, get up, and was able to defend a lot of takedowns and looked a lot better with his defensive wrestling in that one. Emeev didn't really have the jiu-jitsu to take the back of Roberts, though, when Roberts exposed his back to stand up, and I think against Trinaldo that could be a mistake. Emeev is known for having subpar top control, so Roberts being able to stand up under Emeev in general isn't really the most shocking thing. And Robert's scrambling ability, his jiu-jitsu defense is solid. He stays composed, and he can explode out of bad positions. Fight IQ-wise, I think he doesn't show the best fight IQ sometimes. If you watch fight with Claudio Silva, he dropped Silva in the 3rd round. Instead of letting it back up to his feet, he followed him to the ground, and it got him submitted. If you watch his fight with Mike Perry, he easily could have won that fight. He was cruising to a victory in the 3rd round. He decided to stick in and brawl, and it got him knocked out. And Roberts has only been submitted that one time, so that is not been a big issue for him through his career, getting submitted or having issues with jiu-jitsu guys. But I do think that Trinaldo is superior on the ground. And Roberts used to have some cardio issues, but recently it looks like he solved that problem. He's fought at a high pace. His cardio, his last fight looked great. So far in Trinaldo's career, though, the fighters that have been able to beat him have either been able to run away from him, pick at him from the outside, or out-grapple him. I don't really see Danny Roberts being able to do either of those things. Danny Roberts likes to get in there, have fun fights. He's probably going to start out trying to stay long in this fight, but eventually will overextend, get wild like always, and that's where he's going to be in danger against a good counter-striker with power like Trinaldo. Trinaldo has multiple ways to win this fight, in my opinion. He could either get some takedowns, land big punches and route to a decision. He can get the knockout. He could work the clinch and get the win there. Trinaldo has a good record against southpaws. He's 5-2 against southpaws in the UFC, and he's fought quite a few good southpaws as well. I think Roberts' propensity to brawl is going to get him knocked out here against Trinaldo. So Trinaldo, for me, is going to be the pick, and I think he's going to win via knockout. And this next fight, we got Blagoy Ivanov returning here. It's been over a year since, or almost a year since we've seen Blagoy Ivanov in action, but Saturday he's going to be back in the cage, and he's lost his last 2 fights, but both were split decision losses. They were against high-level opponents, and I don't think his stock dropped too much off of that. He is a former World Series of Fighting world champion. He's an established fighter in the division, and Blagoy Ivanov definitely has to come back and win. He's lost 2 fights in a row, but I do think he's an underrated fighter. He's a skillful southpaw boxer. He has an iron chin. He has a nasty jab. He has a really good right hook. He has a nice straight left hand. Good job shooting that straight left hand to the body and the head. And in the pocket, Ivanov is good. He's skillful. He has fast hands. Power-wise, I think Ivanov isn't a super heavy puncher for heavyweight, but he definitely has the power to knock anyone out since it is, 2 big 265-pound guys. And Ivanov is heavy on his lead leg. He doesn't check leg kicks, which against Peizao de Lima, that definitely is something that's a little bit of an issue. I do think that, being a southpaw, it does take away a little bit of the leg kick threat, but that is something that Ivanov has to be aware of and defend those inside kicks. Ivanov doesn't have fast feet, and fighters definitely can stay long and work the 1-2 kicks and beat him from a distance. But he's at his best when he can get in exchanges, uses skillfulness, uses boxing. And another thing about Ivanov, I mean, is the guy is arguably the most durable heavyweight or maybe even durable fighter in UFC history. I mean, the guy could just take bombs, man. He doesn't even feel a two-phase and just stays right in there. So he's extremely freaking durable. We've seen him get stabbed in the chest and keep on going. So, I mean, the guy's a tank, man. He's a Terminator. But Blagoy Ivanov, he's a sneaky grappler as well. He has nice little front choke submissions. He has some good little tricky takedowns in the clinch. And he can control in the clinch fairly well. He has good knees. I watched him catch some kicks of Derek Lewis, take him down that way. And on the ground, Ivanov has a good submission game as well. He has good Kimuras, good Americanas when he can get into side control. He will look to get the crucifix position and finish from there. And he has good cardio. He'll try to push the pace. And, I mean, it's all relative for a heavyweight. Obviously, he doesn't have, like, the cardio of a flyweight, but he had superior cardio, in my opinion, in comparison to Marcos Peizao de Lima. And for Peizao de Lima, moving up to heavyweight, he definitely has probably produced the best run in his UFC career. He's gone 4-2 in 6 heavyweight fights. And most recently, he won 2 fights for the first time in his UFC career. He also got a win over the biggest name he has defeated to date in Ben Rothwell. Knocked him out in 32 seconds. So has to be riding high. And De Lima's a heavy power puncher, and he's going to be trying to be the first fighter to crack that legendary chain of Blagoy Ivanov. But he's also an excellent kicker. Those really nice round kicks to the legs, to the body. He has heavy kicks. And even though Ivanov is going to be southpaw, so, it won't be quite the same. I feel like he should still try to throw those inside kicks and, still try to throw kicks from the open stance. But he will exchange big hooks in the pocket. He's super fun to watch. And against Blagoy Ivanov, in the pocket, one of those guys is probably going to die. So it could end up being a fun fight to watch. Lima's not as technical there, but he just tucks his chin and throws bombs. He's probably a little bit faster, and he hits like a truck. And I think over time, Ivanov will take over. But, the power of the leg kicks to Lima could slow down Ivanov potentially, or he could catch him with that big one-hitter quitter in the first round and knock him out. For De Lima, he has decent takedown defense. He showed that in his fight with Alexander Romanov. He has good dirty boxing, decent knees. The issue is if you force him to grapple defensively, he does get tired quickly. And eventually, if you do take him down, he'll lay on his back and kind of quit, give up the submission. And he does like to slow fights down by getting takedowns and controlling on top. He doesn't really let off a lot of offense on top, but he could just lay on guys and lay in prey to victory. He, off of his back, though, all of his losses have been by submission in the UFC, so you could see that's such a big issue for him. And when he gets put on his back, he has a tendency to kind of give up a little bit. And I feel like Blagoy Ivanov has proven he can weather the storm. And I think he's going to do that and get the finish in the second or third. I think he's this pure grappler. So I don't think that De Lima can rely on takedowns and top control in this fight to slow the pace. I feel early he's going to have a big speed advantage, but after he takes some damage, some body shots, he's going to slow down. And I think that Ivanov can win the fight by submission or knockout. And I'm going to say he gets the submission. It's been the kind of way to beat Peizao de Lima. And I think that Blagoy Ivanov by submission could even be a sneaky good bet. So Blagoy Ivanov is the pick for me. And I think he's going to come back from his layoff and get a submission victory. And we got another flyweight fight in the card here with Brandon Royval taking on Matt Schnell. This fight's a little bit more high level with 2 top 10 ranked flyweights in this fight. But Brandon Royval, through his fight style, has become one of the most recognizable flyweight fighters in the world, if you ask me. He's only had 5 UFC fights, but all 5 have been against big, respectable names, and they've been fun action fights. He's 3-2 in those 5 fights, and very lucky to even have gotten the win in his last fight. But his style is always going to, keep him in the UFC, keep him having fans, keep him in some marquee spots. And I don't ever think he's going to go on a long run of dominance, but every fight he's going to be in will be fun to watch, and someone will likely get finished. His last win was a split decision victory over Rogerio Bontorin, but his other 4 fights in the UFC have all finished inside the distance. He got wins over Tim Elliott, over Kai Kara France, submitted both of those fighters, and then he had losses to Alexander Pantoja by submission, and then lost to Brandon Moreno due to injury. His opponent, Matt Schnell, he's back after a long layoff. It's been almost a year for him. He had 3 fights scheduled with Alex Perez, but due to weight cutting issues on both sides, the fight was scrapped twice. And then another time it got rescheduled to a different date. It never happened. So UFC moved on from that fight. And they must feel highly about Matt Schnell, though, because Alex Perez is a big name to fight. And now they're giving him another top 5 fighter in the weight class in Brandon Royval. Schnell is coming off a decision loss to Rogerio Bontorin at UFC 262. So he needs to bounce back here to stay in the mix. And, yeah, I mean, Brandon Royval, like I said, he's a definition of an action fighter. Every time he goes out there, he's kill or be killed. He pushes a crazy pace. He's much more untraditional. He gives a lot of different looks. He'll switch stances. He feints a lot. He throws strikes with all 8 limbs. He'll pressure heavily the entire fight. He lets goes with a ton of kicks, knees up the middle, big overhand, short hooks. Yeah, he does mix in some straight punches. Keeps the volume very high. He is good at attacking off the breaks of the clinches. Super good with spinning elbows, and he's a huge flyweight. He's proven to be very durable. He can take big punches, and that helps him with his style because he is reckless, but his pressure and durability breaks opponents, and he will get knocked out eventually. I do believe he did get dropped by Kara France, but as of now, you know, he still has that durability, and he was a little bit more composed, and he was trying to be in and out and use his kicks from the outside in his last fight. But I think that was more due to Bontorin having the ability to take him down. And I think we're going to see a return to the frenetic striking style of Royval in this fight. Royval is a good grappler as well. Much like on the feet, he fights at a kinetic pace on the mat. Submission over position. He's very dangerous. The fighters I believe will give Royval the most trouble are guys like Bontorin, who he fought in his last fight. Guys that can take him down, hold him down. He's not really the greatest wrestler. Usually he could scramble and get a submission or end up on top, but when you're facing a guy that, on top of being a good wrestler, has a black belt in jiu-jitsu like Bontorin, can control, knows how to not get swept, knows how to not get submitted, you can end up in a really close fight where you're getting held down for long periods of time. Royval is never going to quit, though, and he has elite cardio. Very difficult matchup for most fighters, and Matt Schnell I don't necessarily think has the wrestling or control or top game to necessarily do what Bontorin did to slow down the fight against Brandon Royval. Matt Schnell is a very skilled fighter, though. On the feet, he has good footwork, he has good head movement, he has technical striking. He doesn't have good wrestling, but he has great jiu-jitsu. And fight IQ and durability are the issues that have plagued Schnell throughout his career. There are fights where Schnell can stay sharp, technical, and pick his opponents apart, but he obliges in a brawl and gets clipped, gets finished. Against Brandon Royval, a fighter who creates chaos in the cage, Schnell has to slow down Royval with the skills, make it more technical. He usually is the bigger guy in his fights. He's 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. In this fight with Royval, though, he is a fighter. He is fighting a guy who's just a little bit taller and longer than he is, so that is something that Schnell's going to have to deal with. But Matt Schnell has fast feet. He has good lateral movement. He has good feints. He has fast hands. He has a nice jab. He has good combos off the jab. He'll throw good counter left hooks in the pocket. He's hittable because he doesn't really move his head or keep his hands high, but he has fast hands. He can land first a lot, and he cannot take low kicks well. That could be an issue for him. And in this fight, he's going to have to use his speed, his long strikes, stick and move, avoid the chaos. But he's a fighter who's nicknamed Danger, and he's someone that likes to stick in there and kind of dig in, stick in the pocket, and let some heavy punches go. And he has some pop on his hands, but he doesn't have elite power, and he can't take the shots, though. He has kind of a bad chin, been finished by strikes quite a few times, and that's his downfall. And he is a good submission grappler. He doesn't really look to hit takedowns or wrestle offensively, but if fighters take him down, then they have to be very careful. Nasty guillotine. He has really good arm bars, triangles. He makes fighters that are grapplers want to strike with him due to the fear of his guard, so it just shows how high level it truly is. Rogerio Bontorin kept the fight standing with Schnell for basically the first 2 rounds before Schnell got tired. They both got a little bit sweaty, and then he felt like he could take him down in the third, and he did do well. Once he took down Schnell in third, he passed his guard, and he was able to control him. But Pantoja as well didn't really want to take down Matt Schnell either. So it's going to be interesting to see if Royval decides to just look for the knockout or if he wants to test Schnell on the ground. Being the fighter he is, I do imagine he's not going to be fearful of Schnell anywhere. So that's going to give Schnell the chance to catch him and maybe submit him. But You know, Royval, he is a guy that's very good in jiu-jitsu himself, so I'd be a little bit surprised if Schnell ended up getting the finish here, but one guy's going to get finished in this fight if you ask me. 5 Schnell's 6 UFC fights have ended in the first round, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this be in the 6th. You know, I don't really see Matt Schnell being able to make this a technical fight. It's almost impossible to do that against Royval, and when you don't have overwhelming wrestling or top control, I don't really see how you can do that. Matt Schnell doesn't have that top end power to keep Royval kind of honest either. I think Royval is going to be able to walk him down and create that chaos, and I think Schnell is eventually going to oblige in a brawl. And I feel like Royval is going to be the more durable fighter, and he's going to end up getting the TKO win. So my pick is going to be Brandon Royval via first round finish. And this next one, we got a rare women's featherweight fight with Norma Dumont, who has been holding it down for the featherweights, man. She's been one of the few girls that has stayed in that weight class, even though she did, I believe, go down one time to fight Ashley Evans Smith. But the majority of her fights have been at 145 pounds in the UFC, and she's coming off a big-time main event win in her last fight where she took out Aspen Ladd. And now she's going to be taking on Macy Chiasson here, who Macy... She went in there against Raquel Pennington in her last fight, which was a short notice opportunity for her. And I felt like she did okay. She won the first round, but ended up getting tired, losing in the second. And she missed weight as well for 145. So I feel like even though she accepted the fight on short notice, maybe she wasn't in the greatest shape. And that's why she got tired after that first round. But the way I see this fight going down is, you know, I like Norma Dumont. I like her fight style. I think she's a tough matchup for a lot of girls. She does a good job of relying on her jab or in and out movement. But I do think this is a tough matchup for her with Macy Chiasson. I mean, you see Dumont, she's been fighting a lot of grapplers recently who don't have great hands, who don't throw straight punches. And Dumont has been able to keep the range primarily with the jab, with the rear hook, the crosses, the overhands. But in this fight, I think she's going to need a lot more than that to win. We already saw in the past Chiasson struggle, or excuse me, Norma struggle with a long striker and Megan Anderson. She got knocked out in the first round of that fight. And I do think she's a much better fighter than she was then. That was her UFC debut. Now she's been training in the United States for quite a while. She's more used to fighting in the UFC, but she hasn't faced that same style since she fought Megan Anderson. And I do think she still has some of the same issues. She pulls back with her chin in the air. She doesn't like getting in long exchanges. She is strong in the clinch. She has decent wrestling, which if she is to win this fight, I think she's going to mix that in. But I don't think she has the greatest wrestling in her clinch game in the world, and I think that isn't how she wins the majority of her fights. If she does get on top of Macy Chiasson, I do think Macy will be in trouble, but I'm not sure she's going to be able to get the takedowns effectively. Macy Chiasson, she's a girl who has a long frame. She's 5'11". She's a 72-inch reach. She has, you know, pretty good striking. You know, she does a good job with her 1-2. She has good uppercuts. She has a good jab. If I was Macy, I would mix in some body kicks, round kicks. And I think if Chiasson can pressure and get Dumont moving backwards, she can land and maybe even hurt her with her blitzes. I do question Norma's chin a little bit. And Chiasson, I think if she comes in shape, she can keep the pace. She should be able to hold her own in the clinch. She has more dangerous striking weapons there with her knees, with her elbows. I believe she can push a higher pace than Dumont and has the superior cardio and grit of the two ladies. Dumont could maybe use a jab and grab game plan to win, mix in some takedowns, and continue the win streak. But I'm going to go with Macy Chiasson. I think that she's a live underdog here. I think that style-wise, Dumont has been picking off some girls that are good for her style because she's a big, strong grappler who's hard to take down with a really stiff jab. So against wrestlers that struggle to get inside, don't really have that good distance control, long-range weapons, she can just pick them apart with the jab, defend the takedowns, and win the fight pretty easily. But it's a girl like Macy who's going to be looking to strike a lot more, who's long, who's rangy, who has power. I think she could struggle a little bit. And Macy does have a lot of finishes up at 145. She finished Penny Kianza, and she's finished some other girls on the Ultimate Fighter show. So I think that at 145, she is going to have better showings as well. And I'm going to go with Macy here to get the upset. I mean, man, come on. You can't ask for a better fight to close out the prelims than this. We got Randy Brown taking on Chaos Williams. And Randy Rude Boy Brown, he's a veteran of the UFC right now, and a fighter we've seen steadily progress through his tenure. Brown has gotten much better at utilizing his natural gifts he possesses, which are his length, And he's good at controlling the distance, picking fighters off with his long striking weapons, with his speed. Very technical striker, and he uses a lot of feints. Does a good job keeping the fight at range, and that's going to be key in this fight. If Brown can stay fast, stay long, he will get the better of Williams. If Brown overextends or makes some mistakes, gets into Williams' range, there's always a chance that Chaos is going to unleash the heat on you and put you to sleep. Brown has, good jab though. He has good 1-2s. He'll throw a jab or double jab out there with the lead hand to try to blind his opponent, and then come with a big rear cross, big hook, big overhand. In his fight with Alex Cowboy Oliveira, he landed a nasty left hook to the body, to straight right, to the head that dropped Cowboy. And he throws a lot of nice front kicks, front knees up the middle. He goes low, goes high with his kicks. And when he gets his confidence, he tends to get really flowing. You'll start to talk in there, get very confident. And leg kicks have been an issue for Randy Brown. We've seen that in his fight with Vicente Luque. Got chopped down with leg kicks, finished with strikes against the cage. Sometimes he can load up on these big overhands, big uppercuts, and he can get countered due to that. He does hold his hands low as well. And at times he has really good head movement, but he is hittable. And Chaos only needs one. I feel like in this fight he needs to be more defensively aware. Historically, I don't think Brown has shown a bad chin, but he has been put to sleep against a couple heavy hitters in the past. Got knocked out against Vicente Luque, got knocked out against Nico Price. But those were kind of weird finishes, to be fair, but I don't really care how good your chin is against someone like Chaos. If he lands flush, he's going to put out almost any fighter in the world. And as far as grappling goes, Randy Brown, he's a good grappler. He does lack physicality a little bit. Maybe he isn't the strongest fighter, but his length gives him some advantages, and he has nasty knees, nasty elbows in that clinch. He has put in the work at Matt Serra's gym on his jiu-jitsu, on his wrestling, and it's definitely paid dividends. He's much harder to take down and hold down than he used to be. He can be taken down, but now he has that danger factor off his back. We've seen him hit a triangle on Warley Alves, who's a black belt. He had a guillotine finish on his record early in his career as well. And in his fight with Alex Oliveira, after dropping Oliveira, he took the back and hit a beautiful one-armed rear naked choke. Brown has good timing on his level changes when he does go for them. And with this long frame, he's good at getting to the back. And, as he showed in the Oliveira fight, he can sneak the arm under the chin very quickly and has a hell of a squeeze. And Randy Brown's cardio is pretty solid. So overall, he's a very good fighter. He's technical, he's skilled, and I'm a fan of Randy Rude Boy Brown. But Chaos Williams, he's a beast as well. He's not the most skilled fighter, but super athletic, explosive, extremely dangerous. And he's overachieved so far in the UFC. He's 4-1 in 5 UFC fights. He has 3 brutal knockouts. Does a good job keeping everything tight defensive. He keeps his hands high. He doesn't really go first much. He pressure fighters. He stays cocked to counter, and has that left hook, has that rear cross. Tries to catch fighters out of position, blitz him with straight punches. In the pocket, he's willing to trade hooks and brawl. And Williams will mix in some leg kicks, but he isn't a big kicker. He has that big one-punch knockout power, so even if his volume is low, and he doesn't really throw a lot of setups, his striking isn't that technical, he has the speed, the power, the explosiveness to make it work. He can close the gap quickly. He has long arms, and when he lands clean, he can knock you out. Very solid chin. He can maintain his power for 3 rounds. He has good cardio. He is going to struggle against guys that are technical and can keep it long, fighters that can beat up his legs, and Randy Brown does have some of that ability in this fight. So that is going to be interesting to see. I think that Randy should throw a lot of feints to try to get Williams to go first, because when Williams goes first, he can get wild to get out of position, and he isn't at his best. He's at his best when he's making, when he's capitalizing off the mistakes of his opponent, in that one-hitter quitter, the counter combos, and putting his guys to sleep. If you fight smart, don't give Chaos those opportunities, then, you could beat him. Chaos doesn't really look for takedowns. Sometimes he will explode in with punches and fall into the clinch. He has good short-range power there. He has pretty good takedown defense. And he's strong. And usually fighters want to stay away from him, so most fighters haven't really tried to take him down very much. He's also been matched with all strikers. So obviously the UFC is trying to keep him away from grapplers, and that trend is continuing on Saturday. I don't really think we see much grappling from either fighter here. I do think that Williams may try to use his strength and size and get some clinch work going, but I think that Brown is good enough in the clinch with his technicality to negate a lot of that. And Chaos Williams comes in the cage with some great intensity, very composed, great cardio, stayed dangerous for 3 rounds. And man, if you ask me, someone's getting put out in this fight. Randy Brown has a chance to wear down Chaos with the kicks on the outside and then land a thunderous knee or kick and put Chaos out. But I'm going to go with Williams by first round KO here. I think Brown holds his hands low. He's just a little bit too loosey-goosey for my liking at times. And I think Chiasson is going to make him pay for that with that nasty left hook, the big right hand, and knock Randy Rude Boy Brown out. So give me Chiasson to be a first round knockout. And kicking off the main card, we got an awesome matchup. We got two legends of the sport, Donald Cerrone and Joe Lozan. These are two of the most accomplished fighters in UFC history, man. You got to respect this matchup. Joe Lozan, he had his first fight with the UFC over 15 years ago at this point. He fought at UFC 263, almost said 263. He fought at UFC 63 in 2006. In that fight, Lozan got one of the biggest upsets in the history of the company as well. He took out Jens Pulver, a former champion and top contender at the time. And Donald Cerrone, he got in the UFC a little bit later. He got in there in 2011, but everyone knows what he's been able to do since joining the company. He has had second most fights in the history of the UFC, has the most wins. Both these fighters are known not just for getting the job done either, but putting on incredible fights. Joe Lozan has 15 career UFC post-fight bonuses. Donald Cerrone has 18 post-fight bonuses. Lozan has 12 finishes in the UFC. Cerrone has 16. I also think that this has to be the fight in the UFC with the two fighters with the most wins in the UFC. They have combined 38 UFC victories, and they have a combined 64 UFC fights. So, I mean, that's pretty crazy. If there's a fight that's had more victories combined between the two athletes and more fights total in the UFC, then let me know. But I don't think there is. And obviously, with that kind of mileage, both fighters are not what they were in their prime. Cerrone's 39, Lozan's 37. Neither fighters had great success lately. Donald Cerrone has been the one that's been way more active, kind of. Obviously, that's his calling card throughout his career. But it's interesting because he hasn't actually gotten a win in the UFC since May of 2019. He's fought 6 times since that date. Lozan has just fought once. He fought October 2019, and he has more wins than Cerrone because he got that one win over Jonathan Pierce. So that's a bad sign. But I do think some people give Cerrone too much slack for his recent performances, though. Obviously, yeah, he's had some really bad showings. I mean, he got blitzed out of there quickly against Alex Morono. He got blitzed out of there quickly against Conor McGregor. Historically, that's always been an issue for Donald, though. And obviously, as he ages, his weaknesses will just get more pronounced. But Cerrone did have the draw with Nico Price previous to that. He had the fight with Anthony Pettis. Even though he lost, a lot of people felt like he should have got his hand raised in that fight. So I think this is a much more appropriate matchup than the guys that Cerrone's been getting recently as well. And I feel like both fighters deserve to have this fight. And, someone's going to get their hand raised. I'm going to be excited to watch it. Joe Lozan, he's not really been a fixture of MMA like he used to be in recent years. In the early to mid 2010s, he was fighting very actively, and Lozan was one of the best lightweights in the world. But since around 2016, 2017, he started to show big signs of age. He's only had 4 fights in the last 6 years, and he's 1-3 in those 4 fights. He got knocked out by Clay Guida, which is really alarming. Then he got forced to quit on his stool against Chris Grutzmacher. But his last performance was amazing, man. It looked like vintage Lozan. He went in there against Jonathan Pierce, ran through him, and took him out in the first minute and 30 seconds of the fight. And that win has aged nicely because Jonathan Pierce has gone undefeated in the UFC since that defeat. So it has been over 2 years since that fight, so Lozan has taken some time off. But he has a jib where he has UFC fighters. He stayed around the sport. And, man, this is a matchup between 2 OG legends. So I think he probably could not turn it down. And he's happy the UFC even offered him another match. So, yeah, I'm excited for this fight. I think, either way it goes, it's going to be probably someone getting finished and going to be a fun fight to watch. But, we know how both these guys fight now. I mean, Joe Lozan, he's on the feet. He's a brawler, and he wants to get in the pocket and throw elbows, throw those nice little straight shots, throw some nice hooks. And he will kind of try to back you up and then close the distance with those straight shot blitzes. So early on in the fight, Joe Lozan has shown, like, he's gotten a couple of these legends, older guys, like he got Diego Sanchez out of there early in the first round in an exchange. He got Takanori Gomi early out in the first round. So obviously, I mean, that's kind of a contrast between him and Cerrone. Joe Lozan's a really fast starter usually, and then tends to get tired and slow down and lose the fights in the second and third. And Cerrone's the complete opposite, where he tends to start slow and get blitzed, get knocked out, or pick it up and take over in the second or third. And I mean, I think, like I said, like stand-up wise, Joe Lozan isn't nearly as fast. He's not nearly as dangerous as some of these recent opponents that Cerrone has been fighting. But early in the fight, he is going to have a chance to get the knockout because he's aggressive, and Cerrone is going to come up flat like 99% of his fights, more than likely. So obviously that first round is a big danger early on the feet for Cerrone, but Lozan's never been known as like a big power guy. He has never really shown like a one-punch knockout ability. Where Joe Lozan really shines, where guys love Joe Lozan, is on the ground. I mean, he has 7 UFC submissions, but he hasn't gotten a submission in almost 10 years. But his last fight, he got the fight to the ground, got the back, smashed his opponent with ground and pound, finished the fight. And yeah, he has good body lock takedowns. He has really good control on top, nasty ground and pound, nasty submission game, super aggressive. That's why we love Joe Lozan. He's a guy that just goes for the kill. But if he can't get that finish early, we've seen in recent fights, he really slows down major. And I am a little bit questioning the chin of Lozan pretty significantly. I mean, even more than I question the chin of Donald Cerrone for what you guys make of that. I mean, getting knocked out by Clay Guida out cold, that was really bad. When I watched that fight, man, I mean, that was a tough fight to watch. And then the Chris Gutzmacher fight, he showed heart, he showed durability, but man, he was getting beat up in that fight bad. And he did a really good job in his last fight to blitz his opponent and get him out of there. And that's what he's going to have to do to Cerrone, man, because if he can't blitz him and get him out of there early, I don't see him lasting 3 rounds with Cerrone either. I mean, Cerrone, obviously, he's slowing down, but he's an exceptional striker. He's a great kicker, and kickers are something that I've given Joe Lozan big issues throughout his career. We've seen him get knocked out with that brutal high kick against Pettis. Donald Cerrone has the most head kick knockouts in UFC history, so definitely don't think that's out of the realm of possibility in this fight. And then on the ground, Donald Cerrone is known for having an elite level guard, having great takedown defense, so I don't necessarily think Lozan's going to be able to take him down and have that domination on the ground that he does against other opponents and be able to finish him on the mat. So I think that Lozan's best chance of victory is to try to finish him early on the feet, blitz him, and try to get him out of there. And if he can't do it, I think Cowboy's going to come back and finish him. So I think the best bet for this fight, honestly, is that the fight doesn't go to decision. But I'm just going to go with Cowboy, even though, you know, he has not won in his last 6 fights. He's been more active. He's been fighting the upper echelon of the division. Lozan hasn't fought in over 2 years, and this is at 55s. I think Cowboy is gonna get the win. So I'm gonna go with Cowboy via second round TKO. But this is one of my least confident picks on the card. I don't know how anyone could be confident on this matchup on either guy, but I do think that fight not going to decision, the under, probably is a safe bet here. And this next one, I'm just gonna be a brief breakdown for this one. I'm not really too interested in this fight, nor do I really get why they're doing this fight. It's a rematch from a fight where OSP won in less than 15 seconds. If they wanted to have ran that fight back a few years ago, maybe I would have understood, because it was like a real weird, quick finish. He hit him behind the head and knocked him out real early. They didn't really get to see anything happen. So if you're like, hey, wanted to see that matchup go down and, you know, let's run it back. Maybe if they did it like 3 or 4 years ago, okay. But, I mean, I don't really get the point, man. I don't know why. I love Shogun. Shogun's one of my favorite fighters, man. Used to, you know, really like, I still really like his style. I went back and watched a lot of his fights. And OSP's a beast too. He's been in the game forever. So I'm not trying to say like these guys don't deserve this spot or whatever, but I don't think Shogun should be, you know, fighting in the UFC anymore. Personally, I thought that his last fight with Paul Craig, he looked really bad. And I thought even the fight before that, when he fought Antonio Rogerio Nogueira, who was super old at that time, and it was his last fight of his career. I thought that Nogueira won that fight. And, you know, OSP, he hasn't been looking good either. He is a very kind of slow, plotty guy now these days, and isn't necessarily as dangerous as he used to be, as explosive. I still think that with his range and he still probably has the power and speed advantage. And I think that he has the ability to probably be better on the ground, even though Shogun, he can mix in the takedown to control on top, and I think that it's OSP, maybe that could be part of the game plan, but I just don't see it, man. I mean, I don't really see how Shogun wins this fight, honestly. I think he could maybe like win a low volume striking fight if OSP just really doesn't show up, but I think OSP's gonna have some confidence knowing that he knocked this guy out already. I think that might be in the back of Shogun's mind as well. Shogun hasn't fought in quite a long time, coming off a long layoff, 40 years old. He had that fight with Paul Craig. I thought that was one of the worst performances of his career, his last fight. So I'm going to go with OSP, even though OSP just got knocked out by Tanner Poser, even though OSP has been fighting some heavyweights, and his career hasn't been going well either. I mean, he had that fight with Ben Rothwell where he couldn't even get the win in that one. So, man, I mean, I definitely am I'm not going to be penciling OSP as like a lock, but I don't know. I can't pick Shogun, man. So I know this isn't a technical breakdown. I'm sorry about that. I'm not really going into their skill sets, things like that, but I'm going to go with OSP. I'll say he wins by decision or first round finish. I don't really even know, man. This fight I don't have a good read on at all. So, yeah, I'm just going to pick OSP. And man, here we go, baby. This fight's going to be hardcore. It's going to be a sick fight. We got Michael Chandler taking on Tony Kukui Ferguson. So, man, I mean, everyone knows on the channel like that Tony is one of my favorite fighters, and I've been riding for him forever. So we're gonna ride till the wheels fall off, man. So I'm going with Tony again in this fight for sure, and I'm actually pretty confident. I mean, I think that people are like throwing dirt on this man, like he's just like a total like one of the worst fighters in the UFC now or something. But you got to look at it from a matchup perspective, right? I mean, his last two fights he fought guys, Charles Oliveira, who is the current champ, who finished every other person that he fought in that streak except for Tony. And then he fought Beneil Dariush, who's on a huge run. And both those guys, they're both good wrestlers that have elite level black belts in jiu-jitsu. And they were able to take down Tony. They made the fight boring. They held him down. They, they controlled him. They were able to get in some deep submission positions as well and almost got Tony out of there. But Tony just... he's not going to tap, man, so he didn't tap out, and, they both won the decisions. But with Michael Chandler, I mean, he doesn't have that black belt in jiu-jitsu, and I don't think he is going to come in here. Like, I see a lot of people think he's going to come in here with, like, a wrestling heavy game plan, but I don't really see that happening. I mean, I think that he's going to go in there and he's going to strike. I mean, when's the last time we've seen Chandler go in a fight and win the fight with this wrestling? I mean, I can't even think of it. Was it when he fought Benson Henderson? Like, the first time, like in 2016, was that the last time he won with this wrestling in a fight? I mean, it's been a long time, but yeah, I mean, just looking at the matchup, obviously Tony's 38 years old now, so he's getting up there in age, and he has lost 3 fights in a row, so people are going to be real skeptical. But look at Michael Chandler, man. I mean, this isn't like a young guy in his prime. Michael Chandler is 36 years old. Michael Chandler was having wars, fight of the years with Eddie Alvarez over 10 years ago. I mean, the guy is taking the damage and taking almost, if not just as much punishment as a guy at Tony Ferguson. And if you look at their recent fights, right, like Tony's last 2 fights, Chandler's last 2 fights, who took more damage, man? I mean, maybe Tony got taken down and dominated, but Chandler got knocked the fuck out against Charles do Bronx Oliveira. He got beat up bad against Justin Gaethje. He took huge damage, and he's already been knocked out in the past more than once. I mean, the guy's chin is very suspect, and he's taken an extreme amount of damage in his own right. So it's not like Michael Chandler is some 25-year-old fresh prospect coming in here. He's coming in on wins. I mean, the guy's 1-2 in the UFC, and yeah, he's fought some of the best in the world as well, but he's not going out here and just dominating and blowing everyone's lights away like people are saying, and like the line is indicating that where Tony's plus 320 and they got Chandler at minus 410. I mean, I don't know if I agree with that, man. I really don't, because just honestly, the way I see this fight going is, I mean, certain people think Chandler's going to come in, he's going to try to wrestle heavy, and he's going to lay on Tony, and he's going to win the fight just like Beneil Dariush and Charles Oliveira won, right? But like I said, when's the last time we saw Michael Chandler go in there and try to get the takedowns and win the fight that way? He's going to go in there and he's going to try to get the knockout, man. He did try to get Justin Gaethje down a couple times, but early in the fight, round 1, he's throwing full power. He's trying to go out there and get Justin Gaethje out of there, and he only starts wrestling when he gets tired. And when he gets tired, I don't care if you think Tony, his grappling has diminished so much. He's not going to be able to control and take down Tony like a Charles do Bronx Oliveira and Beneil Dariush with great cardio, great black belts, great ability to defend submissions, to transition into dominant positions, to rest on the ground when they need to, and things like that. Like, Chandler isn't that guy, man. Chandler, if he takes down Tony, is going to be eating elbows. He's going to be, having to defend submissions, and he's probably not going to really like what's on the ground. So I just don't really see this being fight that takes place on the ground, man. And another thing is that Tony is way bigger and longer than this guy, man. He's going to have a big height and reach advantage. He has the durability advantage, in my opinion. And he has the big cardio advantage. So those are some edges for Tony, man, for sure. And I think that, you know, Tony's going to want to be using the jab. He's going to want to use those push kicks up the middle, the front kicks to the body. And, you know, early in the fight, I think that Chandler is going to be super dangerous, bombing on him. And if he knocks out Tony in the first round, then props to Michael Chandler. He's going to be the first guy to knock out Tony Ferguson. But if he can get him out of there in the first round, is he going to be the same in the second? Is he going to be the same in the third round? I can't tell you that with full certainty that he is. I really actually do not believe that he will be. This is going to be a fight, man. I mean, Michael Chandler, he's the type of guy that he likes to go in there and entertain. He likes to go in there and get in brawls. He likes to go in there and hunt the KOs. Like against Justin Gaethje, right? If he was smart, he really wanted to go on a big title run. We just saw Justin Gaethje get taken down by Khabib, get dominated on the ground, get submitted real easy. Why not just go in there with the super heavy wrestling game plan? Why are you going there and try to brawl with the guy, get wild, get tired, and get your ass whooped in the third round? I mean, why do that? I mean, unless you're in there just trying to, you know, build your legacy, have fun fights, get paid big money, get in some big matchups, and that's what Chandler's trying to do at this stage. Yeah, will the title be nice if he gets there? Of course. He's going to want to get another title shot and win the belt, but he wants to fight Conor McGregor. He wants to fight Tony Ferguson. He wants to fight Dustin Poirier. He wants to fight these guys where he's going to get some money. He's going to get some fanfare, and he's going to have some fun. And I think that he's thinking about that more than he's thinking about, I'm going to get this win and I'm going to win the belt. And, yeah, so, I mean, even if Chandler does go the grappling route, I do feel like Tony, I mean, this is the first camp since his last loss, or since his last win, actually, I believe, or no, actually, excuse me, since he lost to Gaethje, that he started working with Eddie Bravo again. He's working with Dave Mills, his old wrestling coach, and I don't necessarily think that Chandler is going to be able to close that gap as easily as these guys like Dariush, like these guys like Du Bronx that are more fluid, and they just have, I don't know, I think they're just better fighters for sure. I feel like Chandler is overrated, man. I haven't picked Chandler in any of his UFC fights, and I'm not going to pick him now. I think that early, you know, Chandler's going to be real fast. He's going to land some big bombs on him, and I think Tony's going to take him. I think Tony's going to give some back, and then I think Tony's going to start to land those push kicks up the middle. He's going to land the jab. He's going to land the uppercuts. We're going to start to see Chandler's pace really diminish. We're going to see Tony pick it up. We're going to see Chandler maybe get cut up with some big elbows, and then I think it's going to start to become the beginning of the end, and I think Tony's either going to get that TKO or submission finish in the third round. So I'm going to go with El Kukui to bounce back at the win. And, you know, I have been picking him in every fight, so people would be like, oh, you're biased. And yeah, I mean, okay, but still, like, honestly, I feel way more confident in this pick than I have against Gaethje than I did when he fought Charles Du Bronx and Dariush, because I don't think that Chandler is going to fight smart and have the cardio capacity that Gaethje showed in that fight over 5 rounds, be able to hit and keep Tony off of him like that. I don't think he's going to come in here and wrestle. I think he's going to come in here, he's going to have a fun fight for the fans. I think he's going to start quick, but I think Tony's going to get his rhythm too. Tony's head movement looked fairly good in his last fight. And let's see what happens when a guy's not trying to take him down the whole fight. I mean, people forget, I mean, the first 3 rounds of Justin Gaethje, he did get the knockdown in the second round, and the first round was competitive as well. So, you know, I do think that Tony is a huge underdog here, and I think that line's a little off. And I'm going to pick Tony to win by 3rd round finish. I think he has the better cardio, the better durability, better grappling skills, and I think on the feet he's going to be able to not get him out of there. So give me Tony Ferguson. And in the co-main event here, we got the first of the 2 title fights. We got Rose Namajunas taking on Carla Esparza. And Rose, she's going to be looking to continue to build her legend here. She ended her rivalry with back-to-back wins over Weili Zhang, won her belt back, undisputed champ now. And very similar to how her 2 fights went with Joanna, she won the first match with the first round knockout and then had to tough it out and win a gritty decision in the rematch. And overall, Namajunas has won 3 fights in a row. She's won 6 out of 7. The only loss in that span was the slam KO loss against Jessica Andrade. And if she beats Carla Esparza, she will have defeated every single UFC strawweight champion in the history of the UFC. And Namajunas is a girl who, whenever the chips have been stacked against her, she's rose to the occasion. She's been the underdog in 4 of her 6 title fights. She's won all 4 of those. And the 2 title fights where she wasn't plus money going into the cage, she lost. And that is significant because she is a pretty sizable favorite here. I will say I do believe the wrinkle of getting revenge for losing those bars in the past. Another thing is Rose is undefeated in rematches, and also having the thing on her resume of defeating all the champions in her weight class should motivate her more than just a normal title defense as a 2-1 favorite. But man, Carla Esparza, she campaigned on the sidelines for over a year now, for almost a year, I guess. It hasn't been quite a year to get this title fight. And finally, she's getting a chance to reclaim her title. And she's put in that work, man. She's gotten 6 wins in a row against some of the best fighters in the world. Her last 2 victories over Marina Rodriguez and Yan Xiaonan were very impressive because they came against younger opponents that were on big winning streaks. And Carla Esparza has to be commended tenfold, if you ask me. This girl's an absolute OG of the game. She was the first Invicta FC strawweight champion, first ever UFC strawweight world champion. Her reign didn't last long in the UFC. She lost in her first title defense to Joanna Jędrzejczyk. She did get a win after that, but then she lost to Randa Marcos. And at that point, many people felt like maybe the clock was ticking for Esparza. Maybe she was kind of at the end of her rope, and that was years ago. And she went 2-2, kind of, and then 4-4 actually to start a UFC career. So she was kind of middling, and then she's won her last 5 fights in a row. She's casted the underdog in 3 of the 5 fights, and right back in title contention. So it's really commendable, and it's really awesome to see someone evolve like that when you're that late in your career. And she's right back where she was in the first place. She's in another title fight in the UFC. She's in the same position she was in 2013 that she's in 2022. Same for Rose Namajunas. So both these girls are showing some really good longevity throughout their careers. But yeah, in terms of the first fight, I really feel like you can throw it out in reference to this fight. When you go back and watch it, it's a bit odd to see because Rose Namajunas at that point had no hands, really. Now when you think of Rose, one of her best assets is her boxing, her footwork. And in the first fight, she was super kick heavy. She gassed out by the midpoint of the second round. And I don't really think that fight has any bearing on how the one will be on Saturday. Because if I had to guess, Rose is going to look to box way more in this fight. And she's not going to give as many opportunities to get taken down, I don't believe, off the kicks. And I think that just the experience level, her toughness, her mindset has really leveled up since then. And I think that this fight is close, though, because early on, I do see Esparza having some success. I think she could find some takedowns in the first, probably the second, have some top control. I don't think she'll really get that much ground and pound off or be able to do damage like she has in her last fight. And I think that Rose, as the fight goes on, is going to be the fresher fighter, and she's going to start to land more effectively. I do think that Carla, she has some issues with cardio, man. I mean, you've seen way back in the day, she used to gas a little bit. She got a little bit tired against Joanna when she couldn't finish the takedowns. And even if you go back and watch a recent fight, like when she fought Carla or Alexa Grasso, she was pretty tired in that third round, in my opinion. And Esparza, I mean, you know what she's going to want to do here in this fight, though. She's going to want to try to get that single leg. She's a relentless wrestler. She's probably the best wrestler in the history of maybe even women's MMA. I mean, I can't really think of another wrestler at even 135, 145, 125. Obviously, she got out-grappled by Tatiana Schwartz. I'm not saying she's like the greatest or like, the greatest, but she's been the best like wrestler long-term against more opponents, getting takedowns and things like that. I believe Suarez hasn't really fought very much. And, but yeah, I mean, I think that obviously she's going to want to get that single, get on top and ride it out. I don't think that she's necessarily going to try to be as aggressive as she has been in her recent fights. Like her fight against Marina Rodriguez, she did make some mistakes going for those leg locks, losing position, and made the fight a lot closer than it needed to be. And, obviously her last fight, she looked great. She passed the guard, got into that crucifix position, and finished the fight with elbows. And even in the first fight with the Rose, she was able to take the back and get the rear naked choke. But in this fight, I think if she gets the takedowns, I think Rose's submission attacks are too dangerous. I think Carla has to be a little bit careful, just stay tight, stay in the guard, work short punches, try to just grind out that round, grind out the victory that way. And obviously Carla's gotten a little bit better on the feet, but she has gotten better more in the defensive aspect. She still doesn't really have much offensive striking. And I don't think that her defense long-term against Rose is going to hold up because Rose is super elite with her footwork, with her boxing, has good kicks. And I think she can overwhelm Carla on the feet if it stays there long-term. Carla is super tough. She's hard to get out of there. So I don't necessarily think that Rose is going to knock her out, but I think that she definitely will get the better of the striking long term. Rose is one of the best strikers in that division. And then Rose also has an elite level submission game. She's improved her wrestling quite a bit. I think that, she's just improved in what type of strikes she throws. Like I said, she was throwing a lot of bad kicks in that fight, her last fight with Carla, and she's also improved in the distance control that she keeps. And I think that she's going to be a lot harder to get tired. Like, she got very tired early in the first fight. I don't think that's going to be necessarily the case in the second fight. So I feel as if that as the fight goes on, Carla's going to get tired and Rose is going to take over and start to beat her up on the feet. And she could finish in the later rounds, or it could be a decision. But I think that Rose is going to win it down the stretch. But I think it is going to be a close fight. And if Carla wins, I wouldn't be shocked, because I do think that she could easily win these first couple rounds with their wrestling, and then she only needs to bank one more round. So it is possible that we hear an and new this one for Carla Esparza. I think that she's a live underdog, but I think that Rose is going to win because she's going to be able to get the better of the striking, eventually get the beat on Carla's wrestling. I think when Carla gets a little bit more tired, she's going to struggle to get Rose on the ground. And I think that Rose can even threaten off her back as well. So I think Rose is just the more skilled girl overall, more dangerous. She is probably going to get the win, but man, you can never put it past Carla, bro. She has worked her way back up to the spot, and she easily could reclaim the title. So I honestly think it's like a dog or pass situation. But as a pick, I am going to go with Rose Namajunas via decision. And in the main event, we got my 2021 Fighter of the Year, Charles do Bronx Oliveira, taking on Justin Gaethje. And man, I mean, this is one of the best title fights you could ask for. On paper, this is one of the best title fights in UFC history. You have two of the most exciting fighters ever getting at it. And Charles Oliveira, I mean, everyone has already kind of heaped praise on him for having that rough start to the UFC, coming back, getting on this crazy win streak, beating some of the best fighters of all time, winning the belt, defending the belt. And Charles is a certified legend. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, most submission wins in UFC history, just a straight killer. His last fight, he took out Dustin Poirier, solidified himself as the #1 lightweight in the world. And there's only a couple guys that really can kind of lay claim to that as well. We got Islam Makhachev looking in the wings, and then we got this guy, Justin the Highlight Gaethje, who's going to be trying to reclaim that belt. If you remember, he did win the UFC interim title against Tony Ferguson. So if he wins, he will be a two-time UFC champion. And Justin Gaethje is a guy you can't sleep on either, because he has some of the best boxing. He's really improved with his right hook. And even though he's still kind of more of a brawler, he's a technical brawler, and he's really improved with his, shot selection, his ability to land. His leg kicks have always been deadly, the uppercuts. And the guy's just a beast. He's a killer. When he hurts you, he usually doesn't let you off the hook. He can finish you off. And he has one punch knockout power where he leaves you stiff. So Charles is a guy that does like to get hit. And that's why a lot of people are thinking that Justin Gaethje maybe could bring this belt home, because you don't want to get hit by a guy like Justin Gaethje, man. If you're getting dropped by Dustin Poirier in the first round, if Justin hits you with those same shots, maybe you're going to get knocked out. So I think Charles has to be really on point here. And I do think that Charles is the more technical and better fighter everywhere, though. Even on the feet, I think that he has more weapons in the stand-up. I think that Gaethje, he has that shell defense. He can get real static with his footwork. And Charles has a very similar thing where he shells up, doesn't have a lot of head movement, forward and back, kind of that Muay Thai style. So both of them have deficiencies in the defensive realm, but I think offensively, Charles is way, even though he's not as powerful and maybe he doesn't have the weapons that he's good at, maybe he's not as good as Justin is at those weapons, like Justin's right hook, Justin's, his leg kicks. Those are elite weapons. But Charles has a lot of weapons that he's really good with. The push kicks up the middle, his high kicks, flying knees. He has good straight punches. He has good jabs. He, is just really composed. He does a decent job of pull countering, nice elbows. So I think Charles is a lot better with all of his weapons. And I think that the uppercuts, the front knees up the middle, leg kicks, even though Justin is known as the leg kicker, leg kick Justin too, he doesn't check them. Those are all things that Charles do Bronx is going to want to get going. And then the most obvious difference where I think one guy has the major advantage is the grappling realm. In the wrestling, it's obviously very probably lean towards Justin Gaethje, but I do think it's close because Charles do Bronx, he's taken down everyone he's fought, man. I mean, he took down Michael Chandler. He took down Tony Ferguson at will. He took down Kevin Lee. He's taken down everybody, man. He's a great wrestler. He has great timing for MMA wrestling, good double legs, and good body lock takedowns too. And he doesn't even need to take you down to get the submission. So, I mean, that's another thing with Charles. But the grappling is where they have the major difference, where I think one guy is a lot better than the other guy. And I think that's Charles do Bronx Oliveira. We saw Justin Gaethje against Khabib kind of get exposed a little bit. He, almost got tapped with a triangle, or excuse me, an armbar from Mount, and then it got switched to a triangle. He got choked out. And, man, I think if he goes to the ground with Charles do Bronx Oliveira, I don't think it's going to last very long. I think Charles is going to grab an arm, grab the neck, and, go home with his belt, his money, and, another UFC title defense. So I think that Justin really has to treat the ground like lava, man. He cannot go to the ground. He has to, force Charles to come to him, counter, see if Charles can take those shots. If he can, then Justin better be ready to move and counter for 5 rounds, because if this fight gets to the ground, if there's a scramble where Charles can get around the neck standing, get to the back standing, I think that's curtains. I think that's a wrap. So I think that one guy does have the ability to compete on the feet with the other, even though that's his strong suit, and that's Charles do Bronx Oliveira. But I don't think that Justin necessarily has the ability to compete on the ground with Charles. So Justin has to be very careful not to get it to the ground. But ultimately, what I think is the difference is I think that Charles just has more weapons. I think Charles is more composed. And I think Charles is going to be able to get it to the ground at some point and finish the fight. I think he could even hurt him on the feet too. And I think that cardio-wise, Justin gets a little bit tired. I think he's going to be thinking a lot in this fight. He's going to be thinking about the takedowns, thinking about defending submissions, and kind of worried. I think that is going to mute a little bit of his offense, and I think that's going to make him get tired quicker. And that mental fatigue is just as important as the physical fatigue sometimes. So I just feel like Charles do Bronx Oliveira, I've been picking him quite often recently. A lot of people picked Michael Chandler to defeat him. A lot of people picked Dustin Poirier to defeat him. And, I was staying on my guy, do Bronx, and I'm going to stick with him again. I do like do Bronx more. Like, I liked it more when, everyone was on Dustin and he was an underdog. When everyone was on Chandler and he was the underdog, now he's the favorite. But I still got Charles do Bronx Oliveira getting the job done and winning via submission, I'll say in either round 2 or round 3. So there's the full card breakdown for UFC 274. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. For my most confident pick of the week, I'm going to go with Brandon Royval. And for my parlay of the week, it's not going to be a parlay this week. It's just going to be a play. And it's going to be under 2.5 rounds on the Royval versus Matt Schnell fight. So there's the full card breakdown, prediction video, and most confident pick and play of the week for UFC 274. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys later.